Hey there, welcome back to Farmcraft. I'm John. This is a mid-90s New Holland skid steer that I got a really good price on. And this is video 2. I've had quite a few things to fix on it, even though it was a fully functional machine when I got it. Oil leaks and diesel fuel leak and other things. So we're gonna get right back into it today.
So let's do a quick recap on this machine. I went down to South Carolina and bought it, brought it home and gave it a good cleaning. I checked the fuel filters, replaced the air filters, diagnosed a problem with the safety interlocks, replaced the seat and the seat belt. Then I knocked it off the jack stands.
Holy sh**.
Then I fabricated some lifting brackets so I could safely lift it with my vehicle lift. I changed the engine oil and filter, I changed the hydraulic filter and topped off the hydraulic oil. I changed the chain case oil, put on new tires, topped off the final drive gearbox oil, only to discover more problems. The fuel tank has a hole in it and it's leaking diesel fuel. The right bucket tilt cylinder is leaking and all 4 axle hubs are leaking. And it's these axle hubs that we're going to start with.
So what should I name her? A friend suggested Holly. I don't know, but whatever her name is, she's clearly not potty trained. She's leaking all over the place. How about Valdez? I think I can just retire and go into the oil business. So I'm siphoning some of the oil back out.
Several people commented to put anti-seize between the wheel and the hub. That's a great idea and I'm definitely going to do that. And thanks for all the comments. I don't have time to reply to all of them, but I do try to read every last one.
My understanding is these are studs, potentially leak, so I need to RTV those. There's 4 on the bottom, 4 on the top. What really seals it is there's an O-ring, a big round O-ring. Of course it's round, it's an O-ring behind that. That would be the most likely thing to be leaking, but why would all 4 of them be leaking? Oh, that's going to be fun. Because that sprocket was splined onto that. So how do you pull that over? Put this back together. So I see no evidence of RTV on the bolts, but quite honestly, I'm not sure that was the issue. The O-ring was the issue and all this rust. Probably rust jacked so that the O-ring was no longer compressed, maybe, I don't know. But I mean, the oil's up above these bolts. It wasn't coming out from the studs. Yeah, that O-ring's pretty smashed. Hopefully this will work. I've got a magnet and a bag. This is no big deal. I can clean that up and get a new O-ring. What I see now, though, are cracks. The heck? I hope those aren't on every one. I can feel them on the inside, too. I can catch my thumbnail on them. So I need to get all of the oil out of here again so that I can do some welding on that and not start a fire. My deal is looking less stellar by the moment. Man, I hope, well, this was leaking the worst of them, so hopefully the rest of them don't have that. Why is the frame cracked? What if this thing got dropped? I mean, there's just no reason you should crack the frame like that. Yeah, I think it's gonna be Valdez. I'm gonna call her Val for short. She's leaking from everything. All right, so the way it sits on the lift, it's tilted slightly this way. So most of the oil in that chain case is going to be on this end. I'm going to go ahead and open this side up. That'll allow me to siphon everything out and see if this side has a cracked frame as well. Cross your fingers that it does not. Another crack. Good grief.
I don't see any evidence of cracks on this left side. I think that's all okay. This, I believe, is a crack right there. And it might extend down into here, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to check that. And then I'm quite certain that this is a crack right here and then up to there. Well, kind of annoying. I can barely see where they are, but I mean, they were significant cracks. I mean, I can still feel them a little bit, but I've polished it now, so I've kind of lost them. But I've got this this fault finder stuff, so let's see what we can find here. This is just the cleaner. This is the penetrant. It's basically a red dye that seeps down into the cracks.
All right, so now we wipe off this penetrant. And they want us to use a little bit of cleaner again to get the rest of it. All right, so here's our developer. This should make those cracks show up. Those are quite obvious. Yep. Yeah, they're popping. Man, I could have done without this. So I did the penetrant on this one. I marked where the cracks were, and they were where I saw them. The area I didn't think there were any cracks, I don't see any.
In other words, the fault finder didn't find anything more than I saw initially.
The axle housing goes right around where most of these cracks are, so these all have to be flush. So I need to V these out and then weld it up, and then use the die grinder to get it back to flush before I can put this back together. It's going to take a little time and a little care to get that right. Sun is setting, so I'm going to come at this tomorrow, and my goal is to get this whole side all back together and be into the other side tomorrow. We'll see how things go. Welding on a piece of steel that has an oil reservoir on the other side is always a bit of a concern, but it's not like it's a gas tank or a diesel tank. It's just motor oil. Yeah. We've got it drained out, wiped out, and I have a plan. We'll get it. See you tomorrow. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is get a hole at the end of each crack to try to stop its propagation. I'll fill that with weld, but this should help. That's a lot of holes to drill. I better get out the mag drill. So you can see on that one I went all the way through. That crack was definitely worse than this one. And yeah, I can still see it in there. I might do a little more grinding on that. Yeah, I'm trying not to fill this thing up with a bunch of metal stuff, but I've cleaned the oil out already so I can shop back the inside. Remember, I have access right here. So it's not, and it's just chains. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, I'm getting ready to weld on this. Now, I've thought a lot about this and really considered, do I want to do this? Because this is a tank inside that holds petroleum, a petroleum product, which is flammable, and you're going to be welding on it. Well, it's not a gas tank. I wouldn't do that. It's not a diesel tank. You can do that, but you know, I think that's a little more dicey than this. This is just basically motor oil. Will it burn? Yes. Is it going to explode? No. There's no chance of this thing building up pressure. It's wide open here. It's wide open down there. I've got a fire extinguisher ready, and I've got an idea on how I'm going to do this. The first thing I want to do, though, this isn't structural, but with this being wide open like that, I'm going to tack this piece of metal behind it, just so I don't have a big old glob of metal sticking out in there and interfering with the sprocket turning in there. All right, I did disconnect the battery, although I don't really think that does a whole lot, but it's what everybody says to do, so I did it. The more important thing, though, is that my path to the ground is very short and not through anything other than this steel plate. There's no way for the electricity to get back here other than to just do that. It can't go through any electronics or anything. If I were to clamp that on the far corner of the machine, I'd probably mess something up. So this is going to be right beside me the whole time I'm doing this, whether I'm on, you know, you get the point. Because what I want to do now is stick my welding blanket in behind where I'm welding. So my thinking there is, if I develop enough heat back there to actually catch some oil on fire, it's immediately going to be smothered by a blanket and not able to get enough oxygen to sustain burning. And I'm not going to weld, you know, like a whole bunch at once. I'm going to do a little bit, let it cool, do a little bit, let it cool, and yeah, we're going to weld it up. Had to be windy today. It's not going to let up anytime soon, so I've got to figure out how to do this regardless of the wind.
MIG welding relies on shielding gas, and if the wind blows away that shielding gas, you get a very poor quality weld.
So I put up a windbreak so I can try to get something done today. The wind, it's always something.
I basically had to cover the welding area while I was doing it, so I wasn't able to get any footage.
The wind did not make it easy, but I think I got it. It's cleaning up okay. There's a couple of spots of porosity. So here we are after grinding, and I'm not happy with that. Got a couple places of undercut, and I can touch those up and get those better. But like right there, porosity, there's a pore, and there's some more porosity. So I'm gonna grind those back out and weld that all again. Probably won't weld it again until the wind is gone, because yeah, I'm chasing my tail here. What I am gonna do though, I'll go ahead and get this done, and then probably start taking apart the other side so that I'm ready when I do get some non-windy time. All right, I lied. I did go ahead and touch those up. I just really shielded it a lot with my hands and waited for lulls in the wind just so I could get this section done. Yeah, I think that's looking okay. Cracks are definitely gone. There's still a couple areas with just a touch of undercut, and that's just the edge of your weld melts into the base metal and leaves a little undercut there. So it's like if I weld that again, I can end up with another undercut further out. So yeah, just happens sometimes, and not really a big concern. This, one, it won't leak, and two, it's way stronger than it was because those cracks have been welded up. So yeah, all in all, I'm pretty happy with that. That said, I'm still really hoping when I get to the other side, I'm not going to find cracks that I have to worry about. Good enough. I don't want paint on that because that's where the O-ring seals, but I do want paint on all this because I don't want it rusting and rust jacking again. All right, I got 2 cracks here. Let's do those and then we're going to see how the other side looks. All right, there's a few spots of undercut there that's fine. I think that's good to go.
Okay, now let's go to the other side where hopefully things are going to be in better shape. No cracks in the frame over here, right?
That price isn't looking so good anymore. That is a previous significant crack in the frame and repair. So that's the kind of thing where it like fell off a trailer while going down the road or who knows what. Something happened to it. Well, now that I'm here really looking at it, it's kind of obvious, isn't it? That hub's yellow. All the hubs are yellow except that one. So that has been replaced. And yeah, look in here at the frame. And, you know, it doesn't mean it's a total loss. Not the prettiest welding there. I suspect I'm going to find some cracks, and hopefully I can fix it up and get it reasonable. But man, this is going to take me, what, a few days to fix, and I think it'll probably be fine after that if I take some care with it, and it'll do what I want it to do. So the deal's still probably fine because, I mean, shoot, I've seen machines like this. Back when I bought my dozer for way too much money, we're not going to talk about that. But back when I bought my dozer, a machine like this would easily bring 12, if not 15, with wheels. I know, crazy. That's cracked. That's cracked. Huh. Well, I mean, it could be worse, I guess. I'm kind of surprised at the sloppy repair job. I mean, they didn't bring it back to flush. And that actually seems like it's pretty straight. It's like this just ripped off. Right here, this whole piece ripped out. And it's also cracked at the top. But man, it looks pretty straight looking down it. I think I'm going to spend some time here trying to get this better sealed so it doesn't leak, and flat so that the wheel is on properly. It had to be canted out some with the way this thing is.
And also, if the hub is held out at these bolts, it's not going to be able to compress the O-ring properly here, and that's going to cause it to leak oil.
And behind door number 4. crack right there. Oh, that's bent. Good grief, man. Major frame damage was not what I was hoping to find. All right, it's the next day. Let's talk about this. I have to admit I was feeling pretty bummed yesterday. I really was not anticipating or wanting to come in here and find all of these issues. But that explains why I have all four wheels leaking. What do you guys think happened to this thing? I don't know if a car slammed into it. I mean, how do you destroy this section so much? I mean, that's 1/4 inch steel and it got ripped out of there. Yet the boom is okay, you know, the thing's not all twisted, you know, the rest of the machine is pretty good. I don't know, I'm a little confused as to what could have caused that. Two goals. Obviously I want it to be structurally sound, and it pretty much is. I mean, I think if I do the welding again like I'm doing on the cracks, I think that'll be fine. The issue here is, you know, this is kind of a dirty weld. I can see oil right there. It's probably leaking through that. It's probably leaking in multiple areas in here that it's going to be difficult for me to determine where, even with the crack testing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this one and get it done and get it sealed. And then I'm going to make a plug that goes in there with a Schrader valve so that I can pressurize inside the tank, and then use soapy water to locate all my leaks, and then work on this and get this done, and I'll get this side all buttoned up. You know, I think I can get this thing back to a state where it's not going to need attention anymore. It'll be as good as it was when it was new, essentially, or at least close. One thing I did this morning to make me feel better is I got on Facebook Marketplace and I looked up this machine, and I found multiple mid-90s machines, this exact model, going for like 12 to 15 grand. So I do think I'm still okay at the 6,000. I just didn't get quite the deal that I thought I was getting, but it's still a pretty good deal. You know, this is going to take me a few days to get all this fixed up and back to where I want it. But I think we're going to get there, and we're going to have a machine that we can use around the farm for a long time. So I definitely have a crack here. It goes from about there to there. And there might be a little something down here. I'm gonna have to crack test this. But I think that's it. The rest of it looks okay. The top all looks okay. The main thing is this bend, which I don't know. Here's a straight edge. Can you guys see that? Quite bent. It's really all from right here at the bottom. It's centered right there. So I'm hoping I can just bend that back, because that's where the O-ring sits. That's got a seal. I need a seal there. Here's my first plan. Force is on the inside and down here, so I don't think it'll even scar the surface. Better already. It's like a 1/16 to go. Maybe not even that much. But I just hung my whole body weight on it, so let me get a cheater bar. Man, I think that's gonna do it. I mean, that's looking pretty darn good. Didn't damage the face at all. No indent where I was levering against. Wow, something went right.
I went ahead and drilled the ends of the crack that I could see. Then I crack tested it like before.
I'm actually surprised how accurate my eyes are. I see that crack exactly like it was, and I don't see any others. I'm not sure that's really a crack I need to worry about. I think that's just some pitting. Yeah. There's a couple areas of undercut right beside the welds, but where the crack was is all nice and clear, and I'm happy with that. Forgot to hit record. I just got a new O-ring. I put grease in to hold it in place, and that's ready to go back on. All right, I was going to put RTV around these bolts, but the studs are supposed to be installed with sealant on the other side. I don't think they were the problem. And remember, this thing was bent, so the O-ring wouldn't seal, and all the other ones had cracks in it that the oil could weep out of. Yep, new field. Go eat it up. Look at this calf. They see a gate and they get all freaked out. Look out. Me standing here isn't helping either. I'll give him some room. Come on, idiot. The whole herd is out here. Oh yeah, let's go back in the woods. That'll help. He's one of the lower IQ steers of mine. I walked up behind him. He just got the courage to go through. Look at him charging. Something's going to happen. It's a gate. Idiot. All right, this is the old O-ring. So I'm gonna cover this up with this little plate that I just cut out, and then I can bolt it down, put air into the drains or the fill port, and then I'm gonna be able to spray soapy water and see where things are leaking. Now there's an obvious crack right there that they didn't weld, which kind of surprises me, but I can't feel it on the inside. I don't think that is a direct connection there. And there was no water on this side. I think if that was open to the inside, we'd have water in here. So I don't know. Let's go ahead and see what we can figure out. I'm gonna use some grease to hold this O-ring on. Take this out. That's just a 1/2-inch pipe thread. And this is a 1/2-inch pipe thread with a Schrader valve. So now we should be able to fill that full of air and at least use soapy water to see where it's leaking. I'm certainly not going to be able to hear anything. I'm not bitter about it being crazy windy these last couple of days. Not at all. It hasn't inhibited my progress in the slightest. All right, well, it's leaking pretty fast, so I don't have to worry about over pressurizing things. So let's see where the worst of it is. All right, well, you can see how useful this is going to be. So right now, I mean, I've got a major leak there. So I need to get that welded up. I want to look at the straightness of this before I do that, and just make sure I don't need to like really cut all this out and redo everything. I'm going to get a couple straight edges. I'll take a look at this for a little while and see you back. So I've got a level on this thing. And after looking at it for a while, I'm actually pleasantly surprised at how straight things are that need to be straight. If you can call this good news, that's good news. At least I don't have to like take all these welds out and redo them. The bolts are in line, this face is in line, and the wheel should be in line. See, the only issue here is a lot of this weld is sticking out right there. See it pushing the straight edge out? Quite a bit actually, 1/8 of an inch or so. I need it to be flat within the confines of the washer, and everything else can stick out quite a bit. So what that means, I'm gonna work on getting it flat around the bolts, and I'm gonna just leave this like it is, because there's no sense in, if I go trying to bend that out, I'm gonna end up making this not straight anymore. And it is straight right now, so I'm leaving it where it is. I'll grind this out to good metal, and then I'm just gonna fill that whole thing up with a good heavy weld. I obviously have cracks along the top here I'm gonna need to weld. I'm actually reassured seeing how straight everything is. With a little care, I think I can get this thing so that the wheels are tracking straight and everything will be good to go. So that's what we're gonna do, except that's gonna be tomorrow. It's quitting time today. I wish I had known this earlier, but I'm not sure it would have changed what I'm gonna do. I found a technical service bulletin on this machine. This is one of the early models where the frame is a little bit thinner. I think that's 200 thousandths. It's not quite 1/4 inch. Apparently, when these were used with a stiff foam-filled tire on pavement and doing a lot of lifting, so basically you're getting maximum impact. You've got a stiff tire and you've got pavement, so you're putting a lot of strain on this. These would develop cracks, and if you didn't notice that your wheel was getting loose, this would happen. And I've actually been able to get some more information on the machine. Apparently it was used at a recycle yard and driven on concrete with foam-filled tires for its entire life. And I'm sure those guys over there were very careful to never overload the bucket or the forks, right? Yeah, right. So I think this probably just happened from repeated stress, and it cracked, and then finally the wheel bent. And that's what caused the cracks up here. You can tell it's different, but it was from it bending. In the service bulletin, they talked about welding a reinforcement plate on here. I had considered putting a reinforcement plate on this when I first started looking at this problem. But I looked back at this thinking that was a bushing that the axle, the spline shaft is kind of mating with. And I thought, well, it's going to space me out another 1/4 inch and it might cause problems there. Apparently that thing's just for grease retention. That is not bearing any weight. So you can put a 1/4 inch reinforcing plate on this without causing any issues. The thing is, I'm not going to be using foam tires. I'm not going to be on pavement, and I'm not going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting with this thing. Mostly I'm going to be putting a bush hog on here that doesn't weigh 1,000 pounds. That's like half its lifting capacity. I think actually it can lift more than double that. And I think I can reinforce this enough to hopefully not have this problem in the future. Really hope. But if I had to, I'd come back in and put the reinforcement plate on. But the plates are $140 a piece, or I'd have to order a bunch of steel and cut it all out. It's a lot of work, and I don't think it's necessary. So you can kind of see the profile of the hub as it goes on. And there's a boss right there at each bolt that needs to be able to slide back and forth. So basically, like from here to here, there, and there, it has to be flat. Outside of that, it doesn't. Boy, I feel like I'm half-assing it. I don't need to fix it better than it needs to be. You know, I've already done that. I'd have to take that apart, grind the paint off, put a plate on there, weld that all in. You got to seal around here. There's a lot involved and a lot of time and money, and I just don't think it's necessary. So I'm going with my farmer fix, and we'll see how it goes. Leave a comment. I can imagine what I'm going to see in the comments, but leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Am I just being a lazy bum here, or is this reasonable? I don't see the need of fixing it better than it needs to be. That old farmer maxim of good enough is perfect. So I'm going to make this thing perfect, at least in my eyes. All right, you may have noticed that one is welded. It would be nice actually to weld those up and re-drill them. The problem is that I will then not have flat on the back, and the head of course needs to go up against the back. So I don't think that's a good option. I think this is a perfect place for PC7. It's oil resistant. This is never going to get that hot. So I'm going to knock these out, and when I put them back in, I will put PC7 on them to seal it up from the inside. See, that head needs to seat against the inside face, and if I go trying to weld that up, I'm going to have a really irregular face. I go up when MIG welding. I find I get much better penetration and a better weld. But if I don't stop, it gets too hot and the weld bead just runs down. So I have to kind of do it in steps like that. But that's a good solid weld there. I'm going to let that cool off, and then I'm going to do a couple runs down, and that'll make it look better, fill it up a little more, and that should be good. So that one, some oil came out of it and messed up that weld, so I'm going to grind that out. And I also saw oil bubbling out of these little holes right there, so I'm going to grind that out and re-weld all that. But I definitely plugged a few holes here. And you notice it's not windy today? Wow, it's so much nicer. I could just weld. All right, I'm gonna let that cool off. I think I have some stoppers I can put in the bolts. If not, I can just put the bolts back in and let them leak a little bit. But I want to pressure test it and see how we're doing.
A lot of this is just the bolts, and those are going to be sealed later with PC7. So definite improvement.
Okay, here's the deal. I kept finding new little pinhole leaks that took a long time, but I just pressure tested it and there are no leaks except for the bolts that I'm going to epoxy. Yeah, I kept finding little pinholes through that weld there and little stuff coming up in here, down here, even along this. So it's ugly. It sure is ugly. So here's the deal. I think this is going to work, so I'm going with it. If it works, great. Even if it works for 10 years and then I have problems, I'm okay with that. If I ever have to deal with this again, what I'm going to do is get a piece of 1/2-inch plate. I'm going to have the hole, and I'm going to basically have the pattern that I need, and I will cut out that whole section and just replace it with a piece of 1/2-inch plate. It might not even need to be 1/2 inch, 3/8 would probably do it. What's in here now is 200 thousandths, and I think when they put a supporting plate on it, I think that's a 1/4 inch. So that would bring you to 450, but you have 2 plates, which wouldn't be as strong. The newer models that have this problem resolved just use 1/4 inch plate. So for all rights, 1/4 inch would probably do it. So 3/8 should be overkill. Anyway, we're going with this like it is. I've got everything pretty flat around where it needs to, and then I let it stick out a little bit where it could, and trying to preserve as much strength as possible. So for the record, I hosed down this other side, and no evidence of leaking over there. But I do have a little bit here. So gotta take that off.
Since I'm epoxying studs, I decided to go ahead and take the rest out. I leave one because it's welded in.
I'm going to paint it in just a second, but before I do, I'm going to brake clean behind all the holes so that the epoxy has a place to bond. And I'm using regular old brake cleaner. You do not want to use this before you weld. I'm done welding because this is chlorinated. It has chlorine in it, and there will be a residual of it left on the metal when you're done. If you then weld that, it releases chlorine gas, which is no bueno for your lungs. So yeah, that's what the unchlorinated or non-chlorinated brake clean is for. This stuff works better, but just don't weld. Red, caution, don't weld. I am doing this Cryon because I have it, and it just does not work as well as Rust-Oleum, but it does stick okay, so I kind of use it as a primer coat. Those are all in there well. This one has some messed up threads, but I think it'll probably be okay. That's going to cure overnight, and then those should be locked in and leak-proof.
What you got there, Dozer? What is that? Your favorite thing? He loves these bones. She's oh, thank you. Yep. Nice day.
I noticed that this wasn't bent enough. The sealant didn't even really get compressed because of that. Yeah, let's see if I can fix that. That is the same angle as this. Now, I think you can see just how different those angles are. And of course I pick a bolt that won't thread. I am putting RTV on the threads. Messy, but necessary. I'm gonna let it sit like that for an hour and then we'll come back and torque them down. So one of these axles, it still spins fine, but it has play in it. And the others don't. I know there are shims in here, so I'm gonna just kind of take a look in here. I'm not gonna do a full rebuild. If it's because of wear, I'm just gonna put it back together and I'll rebuild it when it needs it, unless there's a reason to do it now. But let's open this thing up, if it's not too much trouble, and see what we can figure out. So we start out with a snap ring here. See if I can launch this thing across the shop. Is it even going to come apart? I think I have to press that out. And I don't know if I want to do that. If I'm going to have to press it apart, I'm going to rebuild it. This thing's going to launch. Now I got it. So those are the shims. Could that bearing, because see the inside race is not moving, it's moving out here. I wonder, could I drive that down more or press it down? Alright, I suspect the back of that bearing is going to be against a shoulder, but I could be wrong. I mean, there are shims in there, so they've given you some wiggle room for some reason. So I've got this piece of pipe so that I can try and drive that down a little further. I got a measurement from the top of this plate to the face. It's the same on both sides. Let's see if this thing will move. It did. That's all it took. Now there's no play in it. Still spins really well. Wow, I'm glad I did that. So now I need to figure out how many spacers I need. So basically the snap ring goes in this groove, and then I've got a gap underneath. Yeah, I guess the best thing to do is some feeler gauges under there and figure out how thick of a spacer I need and just machine it. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I've got a stack of feeler gauges that are just, they allow the snap ring to tilt down slightly. If I add 10 thousandths to it, it's actually pretty snug. So I don't want it snug. 10 thousandths of play I think will be fine. So this measures 89, 90 thousandths. And what I had in there is 44. So yeah, I need something that's 89 or 90. So I've got this big hunk, and you can see the spacer will easily machine out of that. I've already got it partially bored, so let's make it out of that.
It's not centered very well, but since I have so much to take off, it really doesn't matter.
Alright, this is a mystery steel bar. I'm not sure what it is. It's not mild steel. And I was having some trouble cutting it, but I found an insert that it seems to work okay with. So now I need 90 thousandths. Now hopefully my parting tool is going to be able to cut this. I have the parting tool as close as I can manage, even with the outer face. So I put a dial indicator now, and I can move over 90 thousandths. Right there. I parted off right there. I'm going to get a 90 thousandths thick ring that will be my spacer. Will it cut? So you machinists out there, what alloy is this? I mean, it's lead alloy, or I don't know, it's some steel alloy obviously, but the chips immediately turn gold and it loves to bird nest. 91.5, 91. Missed it by 1,000th. Yeah, that's it. Time to order a good snap ring set, because this is not it. Nice. And the play is gone. Sweet. There it is. So it's about impossible to film, But what I'm doing when I'm putting that hub on is just lining up this spline shaft with that, just getting the teeth to mesh and getting this thing over enough. So I reach in with the screwdriver and push it to the center, and then, you know, obviously get it on the bolts, and then we're good. But pretty hard to see anything, let alone film it. Ooh, look at that. It stuck out. Why didn't I do that on the other ones? Idiot. There it is. Wonder what that's for. All right. This is the bolt that got messed up. And we'll see if I can get this die to chase the threads. It might be a tall order. Damn it, Val! If you would just cooperate. Come on, baby. Come on, Val. Be nice. I think it's working.
Got it. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and chase the threads on all the other ones too, but they were all much better. Let's not forget this O-ring this time.
There we go. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Did I leave a washer on that thing?
Well, let's see. Yes, you did. So why put 4 hubs on when you can do it 6 times? At least I didn't have to take it all the way off this time.
I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be to seal that. If I had it to do over again, I just would have cut that out and replaced it with some 3/8 plate. But we'll see if it works. I think it will, for a while at least. I guess the next step is to put some oil in this thing and see if old Val is gonna keep doing her Valdez thing or she's gonna turn over a new leaf. 2 gallons going into each side. And I must say, I'm a little nervous because if this thing leaks, it's gonna be pretty disappointing. If it leaks, hopefully it will just be a tiny, tiny bit and something I can live with. So I'm going to put a gallon in both sides and then we're going to check it. Well, I went ahead and just filled up both of them. Once I had the funnels out, it's silly to stop in the middle. And so far I don't see any leaks, but let's pick it up and really get a look at it. Okay. Oil's been in there for a while. There's no leaks from any of that. I really should have cleaned all this off better first, because you can see I've got some oil that was already there. But what I saw before, it was coming out right here, and it is not now. How about this guy? Nothing. Nothing. That's all shiny, but that's just the RTV. And my nemesis. So far, nothing. Now, obviously, you know, the oil level's probably to like right there, so I'm really not testing the O-rings yet. That'll happen once I get on and drive it around, but that's going to be a little while, unfortunately. All that said, the O-rings, there's no reason those wouldn't seal. Those are all nice and flat and smooth surfaces, new O-rings. That should be good. So, for now, I don't think we have any leaks. All right, guys, this thing's been sitting here for several hours now, and I have no leaks. Nice and dry everywhere. Well, guys, I'd love to throw some wheels on it and go drive it around, but there's more work to do, namely the fuel tank. Right now it won't even run because the fuel tank's empty. So I still need to fix that. I need to adjust the controls. I need to fix the leaky hydraulic cylinder. I need to work on the bucket, and I'm sure something else will pop up. Old valve's full of surprises. So, you know, this frame thing was a bit of a surprise that I wasn't real excited to receive. I was kind of bummed about it at first, but in retrospect, it really wasn't that bad. Hopefully it made some good content for you guys. And I think even if I had known there were some frame issues that would require welding, I still would have bought this thing. I got a good price on it, so thanks to Bennett Equipment for that. I want to let you guys know that we have a new shirt in our store. This one's sort of dedicated to the 1010, but really it relates to all the machines that we're working on. So if you're interested in a shirt or some other merch, definitely go check it out. The link is in the description. And that really supports the channel. Much appreciated. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, share, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And we'll see you on the next one. I got more work to do. So she's staying right here on the lift. Damn it, Val!